Hello and welcome to Lesson 1 of How to Be a Good Wife. Lesson 1, of course, is the Golden Rule. The Golden Rule. Not many people live their life by the Golden Rule today. In the opening chapter, I made a bold claim. I said, managing relationships is simple. I said that relationships can be managed as a matter of will and choice rather than a matter of circumstances. This statement has very deep implications if you stop and think about it. Far too many people live their lives and their relationships as a matter of circumstances, and they usually live them in the manner of a victim of circumstances. This is a very disempowering way in which a woman or a man can live their lives. Before doing the Landmark Forum, I too was living my life in the manner in which relationships occurred as a matter of circumstances and not as a matter of will and choice. After studying relationships and how they worked and how they could be created as an act of will, the obvious question was, if relationships are created as an act of will, how do I and others develop the skill of generating relationships as an act of will? So I did a lot of thinking about that, and in the end it all boiled down to pretty much one sentence. This is the sentence that if you are willing to follow it, you will have a great marriage. This is how to be a good wife, or indeed a good husband. I have presented it as two sentences, one for wives and one for husbands, as the case may be. I find this calls more to men and women rather than to write one sentence that blends the two sexes. So if you are a woman, this is what you do to be a good wife. Quote, ask your husband what it is you can do for him today that will have him be happy. And whatever he says, do it for him if you can. And if you are a man, this is what you do to be a good husband. Ask your wife what it is you can do for her today to have her be happy. Whatever she says, do it for her if you can. How does this work? Why does this work? Because it is in tune with natural law. The essence of natural law is the Golden Rule. You have heard the Golden Rule, but very few people live it. The Golden Rule is, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or, put in another form, it is, do not do anything to anyone else, anything that you would not wish done to yourself. So do not do anything to anyone else, anything that you would not wish done to yourself. Or to put it in another form, it is, do not ask anyone else to do anything for you that you would not be prepared to do yourself, or that you are not willing to compensate the person for if you would not do what you are asking the other person to do on your behalf. I promise you could stop reading and listening right now. Really, you could stop right now and you've got 99% of the value of everything you are ever going to get from this book. This book is all about ask your husband what it is that you can do for him today to have him be happy. Whatever he says, do it for him if you can. And ask your wife what it is you can do for her today to have her be happy. Whatever she says, do it for her if you can. And this is the very essence of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Now, I have said that those people who came to me for relationship advice were predominantly women, at least 3-to-1 ratio. I also said that I gave them the same advice to men as I did to women. When a man came to me and asked my advice, I told him, ask your wife what it is you can do for her today to have her be happy. Whatever she says, do it for you if you can. 100% of the time, the man said words to the effect, fair enough, that sounds like good advice to me. I will give it a go. And 100% of the time, the man reported that his wife responded positively to him asking that question. In stark contrast, 90% of women who sought me out for advice and guidance, and I responded, well, ask your husband what it is you can do for him today to have him be happy, and whatever he says, do it for him if you can. They responded with exactly the same objection. And by that I mean, of the many women who came to me and asked my advice, I never heard a different objection to this one. Never heard a different objection. This was the only objection I ever heard, and I heard it from 90% of women I gave this advice to. Now, before I tell you what the objection was, I just want to remind you that I never heard this objection from a man, ever. Okay? So I want to remind you, women came to me in 3 times the numbers of men. I gave the same advice to men and women. 100% of the men took the advice and said, that sounds fair enough, I'll give it a go. 90% of the women didn't take the advice and said no, and they all had exactly the same objection. All of them had exactly the same objection. The objection, the only objection, the objection that women used in the 90% majority was, drum roll please, but what if I do not want to give him what he asked for? That's the objection. But what if I did not want to give him what he asked for? I would meet this objection with this. My advice to you is not ask your husband what it is you can do for him today to have him be happy, and whatever he says, do it for him if you want to. That's not my advice. My advice is ask your husband what it is you can do for him today to have him be happy. Whatever he says, do it for him if you can. Meaning, if you are physically capable of doing what he asks and it will not cause you injury or harm. If you can, not if you want to. My testimony is this. 100% of the men I gave this advice to were willing to give it a try, usually to very good result. 90% of the women I gave this advice to were not willing to give it a try, and the results were obvious. If you are not willing to give this a try, do you really love your husband? Of course not. If you are not willing to ask this question and follow up as a wife, then your professed love for your husband is something else. And that something else is something we will talk about later in this online living, breathing, changing, evolving book. Now, let me give you an example of how this works, or does not work, as the case may be. I did this class in February 1995. I came up with this single statement in or about August or September 1995. I can't remember the time frame. I thought of it. I was trying a number of different things at the time to see how they worked out. From late 1995 to 2007, 12 years, I asked Jennifer this question at least once a week and then did what she said would make her happy. Sometimes it was giving her a break from the kids. Sometimes it was rub her neck, rub her back, let her take a hot bath with the book and take care of the house. There are quite literally 1,001 things a person might think of when this question is put to them that they might feel would be really nice to have their husband do right now or this week, and what would make her happy. Sometimes it was something like, well, there is this chick flick that I really would like to go and see, but I want to see it with you. I would like you to see it with me, and I would like us to be able to talk about it as a shared experience. Over the years, Jennifer never asked for something that was too outrageous that it was not possible or would cause harm. Indeed, the things that were not possible, she would not ask me about. She would just do them and leave me to pick up the tab, right? Why ask a question for something you might get no to, was her response. In some cases, what she would do would so shock me and so surprise me and even put me in jeopardy that she would use the excuse of, well, if I asked you if I could do this, you would say no and be angry with me for asking. So I just did it anyway, and I will let your anger and frustration at me blow over. More on those sorts of things later. Yes, she actually said that, right? She actually did things like that. More on that later. In this conversation, in this discussion, the point is that for 12 years I asked Jennifer every week when I was home from traveling from work pretty much every day, what can I do for you today that would make you happy? And then I delivered. Jennifer knew this was the advice I was giving to other couples. She had sat and watched me say so. She had heard me recount stories of me saying so. I just want to point out that when a husband asks a wife this question, the vast majority, what is then asked for is completely reasonable and usually quite minor in the overall scheme of things. Okay, a back rub, a neck rub, mind the kids while I have a long hot bath and read a book, watch a movie with me, take me to a nice local restaurant and pay a babysitter for the evening. These are things that almost any husband would say, sure, that's cool, I can do that. If that's what makes you happy today, I'll do that for you. And this is why the men did it. The men said, oh yeah, I'll ask the question. It was usually, what they were usually asked for was usually small stuff like that. So when Jennifer and I were discussing divorce in 2007, she came over to Germany, and I think it was September 2007. And I put the question to her, for the last 12 years, I have almost every week, and many times I was home from travelling every day of the week, asked you the question, what can I do for you today that would have you be happy? You know this, but in return for the last 12 years, you have never, not even once, asked me that question. And I would like to know why. And without a word of a lie, I tell you her answer was this. Word for word it was, I never asked you for what you wanted because I know what you want and I do not want to give it to you. Right? That's what she said. I never asked you for what you wanted because I know what you want and I do not want to give it to you. Now, as a Western woman, just get over your in-group bias for a minute and listen to this woman's response. It is, in the West, apparently acceptable today for a woman like Jennifer to openly state, I know what you want and I do not want to give it to you. This is empowerment. Shitting on your husband is known as empowerment today. When I told Sue One this comment, she was shocked to the core. She said, your wife spoke to you like this? Now, if you are new to my work, or to me, you'll be wondering who this Sue One is Peter keeps referring to. I will share more about her later. I have created Appendix 1, Favourite Number 1, and you can go and read that. You can go and read that appendix from the table of contents if you like. I have put a lot of information about her into the public. I protect her name because there are those who wish to do her harm. I also created Appendix 3, Favourite Number 3, to describe what the woman who I call my favourite number 3 was like. She is referred to as Sue 3 in this book. I can honestly say that if Jennifer chose to have the character of either my Sue 1 or Sue 3, it would not have been necessary for us to divorce. Jennifer's life would have been much better for her post 45 years of age if she would simply have been a decent woman. I have included these two chapters on Sue 1 and Sue 3 to demonstrate to you what a decent woman can be like. So let us talk a little bit more about the Golden Rule and what the Golden Rule is. As I said, there are a number of ways to phrase the Golden Rule. Here are some of the most well-known ways. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Or, do not do anything to anyone else, anything that you would not wish done to yourself. Or, do not ask anyone to do anything for you that you would not be prepared to do yourself, or that you are not willing to compensate the other person for if you would not do what you are asking the other person to do on your behalf. I.e., if you're not prepared to do it yourself, pay the other person in some way, shape or form, compensate them. The third one is very much if you want something done that you do not or cannot do yourself, then make sure you equitably compensate the other person for their time and effort. We all know that women expect free favours from men, thereby breaking the Golden Rule. So let us talk about relationships between men and women in the West today and measure the common responses up against the Golden Rule. And just at this point, we'll take a short word from our sponsor. Thank you for returning. You, dear reader or listener, are well advised to keep in mind that however women treat men and how they broadcast it is okay by women to treat men, under the golden rule, this is how men have every right to treat women. The questions for women to keep in mind are these. Do you obey the golden rule in your dealings with men? Think about that. If the golden rule is, don't do anything to anybody else that you wouldn't want done to yourself. Don't take advantage of other people just because you can. Don't do unto others as you would have others do unto you. If you are living by that rule, ask yourself some of these questions. Do you take advantage of men and use the fact you are female to exploit, manipulate, dominate and control men in a way that you would not wish to be exploited, manipulated, dominated and controlled in return? Would you like to be treated by men the way that women commonly treat men? Would you like men to do unto you as you do unto men? Do you buy men dinner as often as men buy you dinner? Do you open doors for men as often as men open doors for you? Do you defend a man who is being attacked by a faithless wife in the family law courts like you would like to be defended by a man if you were attacked in the street for the contents of your purse? Are you honest with men like you would like them to be honest with you? Do you listen to men like you want them to listen to you? Are you empathetic and sympathetic to their feelings, thoughts, hopes and dreams? Are you empathetic and sympathetic of their personal situations? And do you offer to help them like you would with men to be empathetic and sympathetic to you and offer to help you when you are in need? Do you do that? Do you change your own flat tire on your car, or do you attempt to attract a man to do that for you? Have you ever voluntarily changed the flat tire on a man's car just because you can? Do you stand for a man on a train or a tram as often as you wish men to stand for you and give you a seat? Or do you stand for an elderly man on a train or a tram like you would wish a younger man to stand for an elderly or pregnant woman? You get the idea. I could list 100 questions like that where the vast majority of women would expect, indeed demand, to be treated differently to men. The average Western woman demands to be treated differently to men. Here are some other areas where women demand to be treated differently to men. War dead, 98% men. Workplace dead, 93% men. Incarcerated, 90% men. Homeless, 90% men. Alimony payers, 90% men. Child support payers, 90% men. The number of women's groups campaigning to have equality in those 6 categories? Don't make me laugh. There are none, right? And yet, in his recent State of the Union address, we hear Barack Obama get a standing ovation for repeating the lie that women earn 77 cents of the dollar compared to men, saying women need even more privileges dressed up as rights to get more money from men. If you did not believe that he said this in his State of the Union address, here is the video of it. You can see it by clicking on the link. So, if you're watching this online, by all means, click on it. Now, dear reader or listener, answer in your own mind the following questions. Would Barack Obama have gotten a standing ovation if he said the following? We are going to work between the House, the Senate, the Judiciary and the Executive to ensure that women are equally represented in the following areas. Women will be 50% of the war dead and injured. Women will be 50% of the workplace dead and injured. Women will be 50% of the homeless. Women will be 50% of the incarcerated. Women will be 50% of the alimony payers and will pay 50% of all alimony paid. Women will be 50% of child support payers and will pay 50% of all child support paid. Women will be 50% of school teachers. Women will be 50% of nurses. Women will be 50% of daycare providers. Women will be 50% of bank clerks. Women will be 50% of the checkout staff at supermarkets. Women will be given the same prison sentences for the same crimes as men. We will work tirelessly, endlessly in adjusting the legislation and in taxing women and enforcing this legislation and taxation so as to be able to achieve equal representation for women across all these important areas of our society. Hooray for equality. Really? Would we hear cheering? If Barack Obama said that in his State of the Union address, would we hear cheering? Would we hear applauding? I mean, come on. I think not. Because everyone knows that for women to reach a 50% representation or equal representation in each of those 12 categories, those 12 areas, then the advantage women currently hold would have to be removed by way of force of legislation and force of taxation. We know that. Equalities in these areas would have to be enforced at the point of a gun and threat of incarceration, which is exactly how it has been enforced on men at the behest of women. And yet this is not do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Women demanded equality, meaning they demand equal outcomes no matter how they are arrived at. And yet, when the equal outcome would eliminate a distinct advantage women have in a certain area, the women do not want to talk about it. Further, any man who talks about the massive privileges women have, like not being eligible for the draft or conscription or national service, that man is attacked and hated on by many women. The tactic is always the same. Accuse the man of hating all women and scream loudly enough that he is silenced. Demand he is fired. Demand others attack him. It's always the same. And, dear reader or listener, if a woman voiced some opinion that was objectionable to a man, would you like men to do unto her as so many women do unto men? Would you like men to say to the woman, "You hate all men, and we are going to petition your employer and get you fired"? Would you like that? Of course you would not want that, but you will allow other women to do the same every day of the week. I have been the victim of many such blatant attacks by women for years, 6 years in fact. What would do unto others as you would have them do unto you look like if you, dear lady, participated in such behaviour? What are some of the things that you would do? Well, for a start, you would be willing, in the 100% majority, to ask your husband, "What can I do today that would make you happy?" And you would deliver on that. That's what you would do. So please allow me to put that into perspective of my own relationships so you can understand. I recall when I told Sue on that story, she looked at me and said, "So all I have to do is ask you what would make you happy, do as you ask, and you will be happy? That's it? Nothing more?" When I told the story, that's what she came back with. And I said, "Sue one, if you would ask me what I want to make me happy, and I told you and you delivered, you would be the most dangerous woman in the world to me, because I might just fall in love with you." That's what I said back to her. At that comment, she did, literally without a word of a lie, she jumped up and down with laughter and joy and clapped her hands and said, "I am going to make you the happiest man in the world." That's what she said. That was the response of an Eastern European woman. We didn't even know each other very well at the time. That's what she said. My wife for 12 years said, "I know what makes you happy, and I don't want to give it to you." And this Eastern European woman said, "I'm going to make you the happiest man in the world." Have a look at the difference, ladies. Which woman do you think is more attractive to me? This was the response of an Eastern European woman. Her view was, this man just told me how to win his heart, and damn it, I'm going to give it my best shot. And what were these things I asked her to do? What were these impositions that were so massive in the 12 years that we were together after the Landmark Forum that Jennifer knew I wanted but would not give them to me? Well, one thing I really like to have the lady of my life do is run her fingers through my hair and rub the back of my neck. Yep. What a greedy, selfish bastard, eh? I want someone to rub the back of my neck. That's really great. Apparently I got this as a favourite thing from when I was a small boy and would not settle at night. My mother told me many years later that when I was little and would not settle, she would rub the back of my neck and head and sing to me, and apparently that helped me settle at night. I mean, this was when I was 1 or 2 years old, so I obviously do not remember that time. When I was older and was occasionally sick, my mother would do the same. She would sit next to me on my bed and stroke my head and hum to me or sing to me to help me feel better when I was ill. It seems only logical that this would be something I would like from the woman in my life, right? When I told Sue One this, she looked at me incredulously and said, You just want to lay in my lap and have me run my fingers through your hair and talk to you. That is what you want? Your wife would not do this for you when you asked? Sure enough, Sue One lived up to her promise. Whenever I would lay down in her lap and rest and have her stroke my head and talk to me about whatever she wanted to talk about, she would do that. No questions asked. Her position was, if this is what you like and it makes you happy, then it is my privilege to do that for you. Sue One looked at making me happy as a privilege to be exercised, not a chore to be endured. Another thing I like to have is my back massaged. This is because when I was 15 I grew very quickly and I've had a bad back ever since. I've been in pain more or less ever since. I have to be very careful of my back, and you learn just to live with it, and there's more stories about that later on in the book. So I asked Sue one day if she knew how to do back massages, and I told her that she would win many points if she could do that. Sure enough, not only could she do that, but she was very good at it. She has amazingly strong hands for a woman and can give a massage that is not much weaker than a man. On days when we were together and I had back pain, she was only too pleased to help me out by giving me a back massage. She took great pride in her ability to give back massages because she really was better at it than almost any other woman I know. I do know one woman I get back massages from by who is professional at it. She's Thai and she's small, so she actually climbs up on my back to get the leverage needed. Obviously, as a professional, she's going to be better than Sue number one. One last example of what I like. One time Sue One was giving me a back massage and she started humming a tune. Jennifer was totally tone deaf, so there was no point asking her to sing anything. But I wondered if Sue One could sing. So I asked her if she could do that. She said, sure. And so she started singing me a song while she gave me a back massage. The song was in Ukrainian, and so I had no idea what it was she was singing about, but her voice sounded like an angel. And I'm no connoisseur of singing voices. I'm pretty tone deaf too myself. You certainly do not want to hear me sing. But to me her voice sounded like the voice of an angel. She sang for a good 10 minutes. The same song a few times, I guessed. It was a lovely experience. Not that I could remember the words or anything, it just sounded like the same tune. When I turned to say thank you to her face, I noticed she was crying. She had tears in her eyes, and I asked her why. She told me that her mother had taught her that song when she was very little, and it was about a little girl who hopes and dreams that her knight in shining armour, her handsome prince, will one day arrive on her doorstep and sweep her off her feet, and they will live happily ever after. Sadly, this never happens for this little girl, and she grows old alone. She mentioned that this also seemed to be her fate, that she had waited for her Prince Charming to come along, and it seemed that he never would arrive. We spent many more hours where she massaged my back and sang to me. They were some of the nicest times of my life. Many women say men are only interested in women for one thing, and yet when a good man like me tells you that we are interested in you for many other reasons and we would like you to use your talents in our relationships, you deny that we could ever be interested in such than what Sue-One did, which was just do what we ask. This is how simple it is to manage a relationship. Really, it's that simple. And with that, we'll take a short word from our sponsor. Thank you very much for returning. Now next, if women would do unto others as you would have others do unto you, what would you do to help men being attacked by women in the divorce courts? We all know that if a woman is walking down the street and some thug attacks her and attempts to take a handbag off her, that women expect some man will help her. Here is a recent article in Philly.com from the city Philadelphia in the USA. As per usual, it is men to blame. As per usual, women can never take responsibility for the outcomes of their actions. You can read the whole article on this link. Please allow me, dear reader or listener, to quote from the article. And I'll quote directly from the article. Okay, so the quote starts now. Men are failing us, says woman planning demonstration. As Tima Sanchez of Northern Liberties got dressed yesterday morning, she carefully considered which purse to carry. Given the recent spate of purse snatch shootings, she wondered whether she should carry her Louis Vuitton with the short straps. Under the circumstances, maybe a wiser choice was the brown Marshall's knockoff with the long strap that goes across her chest and keeps her hands free. Better yet, perhaps the smartest thing was not to carry a pocketbook at all and instead tuck her money in her bra. Anything's better than toting around what she's begun referring to as a death ticket. Women across the city are having similar conversations with themselves lately as Philadelphia reels from another senseless purse-snatching homicide. The latest happened early Sunday as two women left the Tropical Heat nightclub at 53rd and Market Streets following a night of karaoke. Two men in hooded sweaters confronted the woman about 2:35 a.m., took their handbags, then opened fire, killing Melissa Thomas, 29, and injuring her friend. All because of a damn handbag. She gave it up and she was still killed, said Sanchez, 40, an administrative assistant. It's 2:40 in the morning. She's just coming out of the bar. At 2-something in the morning, they probably didn't have much cash on them. Where are our men? Why are they not protecting us? Sanchez continued, her voice full of frustration. Men are failing us. I feel as though we are not being protected. Like a lot of us, she's hot as hell about what's been happening. Sanchez, though, is turning her outrage into action by reaching out to her other local women, urging them to gather with her at 9 a.m. Saturday at the site where Thomas was killed, to call on city officials and also on their communities to protect them. The demonstration is being billed as Handbags for Peace. This should be about women saying enough is enough, said Manuel Glenn, a political consultant advising Sanchez on Saturday's event. When women get pissed, they get things done. Notice what they're getting done is calling on city officials and their communities to protect them. That's what they're getting done. Getting somebody else to do what they can't do for themselves without paying them is what they're getting done. Okay, just thought I'd add that. He pointed out that the old code of the streets, that thieves don't hurt women and children, is no longer honoured. Well, women said they were equal. This new generation, they don't have a clue, Glenn said disgustedly. In the past 2 months, according to police, 3 women have been shot by thieves over their pocketbooks, and Thursday a man was shot chasing men who snatched his girlfriend's purse. See, man got shot defending a woman. Do women get shot defending men? No. I shouldn't get dressed in the morning with the fear that my pocketbook book might be my death ticket, Sanchez wrote on a Facebook page for an advocacy group she founded last year called the Pink Soldiers. Now, that is the end of the quote. Okay, that's what I read, and that was a quote. Notice comments like, "Where are our men? Why are they not protecting us?" Sanchez continued, her voice full of frustration. "Men are failing us. I feel as though we are not being protected." Well, you said you were equal, so you have to protect yourselves. That's what equality means. Why should us men risk our lives to protect women when women will not even speak up for a man being criminally victimized in the family courts at absolutely no risk to herself? Remember in the quote, a man was shot trying to get his girlfriend's purse back. But women will not speak up about men being victimized in the family courts, which is much more severe than having your pocketbook snatched, right? Having your children kidnapped and your house stolen and your future income stolen is a lot more significant than having your pocketbook snatched. But these women are complaining about having their pocketbook snatched, but not doing to men what they're demanding of city officials, who will be men mostly. They're demanding men protect them, but they're not offering protection for men. A woman who speaks out against a woman committing the crimes of perjury, kidnapping, extortion, theft and child abuse in the family courts is in no danger of being immediately shot by the woman she criticises, like a man is in immediate danger of being shot or stabbed or beaten and battered by some thug stealing a woman's purse. Yet the article condemns men. The article does not say women demanded to be treated as equals, and as such we must take on the responsibility of protecting ourselves. After all, when a man is being mugged in the street, no women go to the scene of the crime and risk their lives protecting the man. The article does not say that. The article does not say women demanded to be treated as equals despite not being so, and this effect of men no longer being willing to protect us in the street is our own fault. We should have been more careful in what we wish for, because now we have equality in the street and we sure do not like it. The article does not say that. If women wish any nearby man to defend her in the street at the risk of life and limb, then under do unto others, women must be prepared to risk life and limb protecting a man in the street when he is mugged. If women are not willing to do that, then they must renounce all claims to equality. It is not acceptable to good men like me anymore to say, quote, "We claim equality, but if it might put us in danger, we still want the privilege of men risking their lives to protect us and our handbags," end quote. Further, it is incumbent on women to ensure that when they see a criminal woman victimizing a man, that they intervene on behalf of the man. It is incumbent on women to do that. That such criminal women are victimizing men using the state as their own private armed thugs is neither here nor there. That the crime is being incited by the woman and committed by the state is not an excuse for women to remain silent. The continued failure of women to intervene when criminal women victimize men using the criminal apparatus of the state and the state-sponsored thugs makes you very, very unattractive to us. The lie and the hypocrisy about wanting to be treated as equals is no more apparent than in the divorce courts. That Western women have attacked men for so long in the divorce courts and so few women have spoken up about these crimes has left a very, very bitter taste in many a man's mouth. Those men like me who were similarly criminally victimized are making sure we tell as many of the young men as possible all about what our women have done. The lads are listening up very intently when I say 5% is the new 50% if you happen to be a man, and 99.9% plus of women are liars and hypocrites. on the point of claiming to be equal because they most certainly do not wish to be equal before the law. And there is not one woman of note in the Western English-speaking world who will openly say in her own name that women are to be held equal before the law, specifically meaning the same crime gets the same punishment, and is willing to sit on an all-women's jury in an all-women's court to make it so. When I say things like that in public to the young men, my dear reader or listener, you can be assured that I have the attention of the young man. Indeed, I would share with you, dear reader or listener, that over the last few years I've been telling my story publicly to young men. A number of them have written to me and told me they have left their Christian church or ended their engagements because they could see that they could end up in the same position as me. They could see that there was no reason and nothing protecting them from having their children stolen, their house stolen, their business destroyed, exactly as happened in my case. While our Western womenfolk choose to treat men as terribly as you do, then you should expect that more and more young men are going to refuse to protect you in the street and refuse to provide for you through taxes and welfare programs. Most certainly you should expect them to continue to refuse to marry you and refuse to have children with you. The man drought and marriage strife is going to continue until such time as it is agreed by the vast majority of Western women that you will hold your peers equal before the law. This must, as a prerequisite, include processing women who committed crimes through all-women courts and all-women juries and requiring guilty women to make remedy for their crimes. If you women will not do this, under do unto others as you would have them do unto you, you cannot expect men to be willing or motivated to secure remedy for crimes men commit against women. Women will either step up to the level of actually being equal before the law and holding other women equal before the law, or there will be a rapid degeneration of the willingness of men to protect you in the street, marry you, or have children with you. In short, the deterioration you are seeing in the quality of relationships between men and women and the increased violence and crime in society is a direct result of women treating men so terribly for so long. This is something that women deny without due consideration. My dear reader or listener, Western society is in a downward spiral, specifically because men are now beginning to do unto women as women have done unto men in the West these last 40 years. Namely, they are starting to criminally victimize women much more often because women have made it very clear to men that they have no problems with women criminally victimizing men. I said at the top of this chapter that if you would simply learn to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or do not do or allow anyone else to suffer what you would not suffer yourself, you will have learned 90% of all you are going to learn from this book. I stand by that statement. If women want to have good husbands to marry, if women want to have good men to have relationships with, then you are going to have to admit your sins, apologize, ensure those women who committed crimes make remedy to their victims, and start treating the men in your life much better than you have these last 40 years. This book and many others are a warning to you. If you continue to treat men poorly, then you can expect the violence and backlash that is currently rapidly increasing by men against women to continue to rapidly increase. How men will treat women in the future will be, for sure and for certain, a reflection of how women treat men in the past and present. Men will do unto you as you have done unto them, and most of you, my dear reader or listener, will not like that one little bit. So if you read or listen to nothing else in this book, you now have 99% of the value from it. However you are willing to treat others or allow others to be treated will be how you should expect to be treated yourself. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for reading or listening.